meant. Out of curiosity, he opened his computer and looked it up. To his shock, the result caught him completely off guard. This string of numbers matched the major 9/11 disaster that happened in 2001. Even creepier was the number 2996 that came after it. It was exactly the total number of deaths in that disaster. But this letter had been sealed inside the capsule back in 1959, and a full 50 years had already passed since then. Was this really just a coincidence, or could someone actually predict the future? John immediately became obsessed with the numbers. He copied every number from the paper onto the whiteboard, then searched and checked them one by one. To his surprise, every major disaster from the past few decades matched the numbers on the paper perfectly, whether it was the date or the number of deaths. Everything was exactly right. In other words, the person who wrote this paper had successfully predicted the future. But at the end of every set of numbers, there was still another string of numbers. He still had not figured out what those numbers meant, but the whole thing was already unbelievable enough. Early the next morning, John went to his office. He told his co-worker everything he had discovered, and brought up one very important question. There were still several dates on the paper tied to disasters that had not happened yet. According to what was written on the paper, a new disaster would happen 2 days later, and 81 people would die in that disaster. Although the earlier numbers all matched disasters that had already happened, John still could not be sure a disaster would really happen 2 days later. But just to be safe, he hoped his co-worker would help him analyze the numbers to see if they could find anything else, so they could prepare in advance. But after hearing all this, his co-worker thought John was losing his mind. He believed the numbers were just a prank, and even told John to get some rest. John saw that his co-worker did not believe him, and knew it would be hard to convince him for now, so he could only go back home and keep a close eye on every kind of news report. Soon the date marked on the paper arrived. John waited at home the entire day, but there was no news of any major accident on TV. That evening it just happened to start raining. John was getting ready to pick up his son from school. While driving, he ran into a serious traffic jam. During the traffic jam, he called his co-worker, planning to apologize for what had happened earlier. He started to wonder if he had overthought everything, but right at that moment, he accidentally saw the longitude and latitude numbers on the car navigation screen. John instantly thought of the numbers on the paper that he had not understood. He quickly took out the paper and compared them carefully. After checking several sets again and again, he realized those extra numbers were actually the longitude and latitude of the locations. The bad news was, the location of today's predicted disaster was right nearby, but the road ahead was completely blocked. Could an accident have already happened? John pushed open the car door and quickly walked forward, getting ready to ask the police officers controlling the scene. He had just started asking what was going on, but before the officer could answer, the officer's face suddenly changed, and he turned around and ran back. John turned around in confusion and saw a scene he would never forget for the rest of his life. After this horrific accident happened, John was terrified, but he still rushed forward to try to save people. He had only run a short distance when a second explosion suddenly erupted up ahead. John could only watch helplessly as the disaster unfolded, unable to do anything. From that moment on, he was certain the paper recorded real prophecies of disasters. The next day came. The number 81 appeared in the news reports as the death toll. This made John even more shocked and uneasy. He could not believe someone could truly predict the future with such accuracy. But there were still 2 disasters about to happen. To find the person who had written these prophetic numbers, John went to the old principal at the school. The old principal recalled what happened 50 years ago. Back then she was still a teacher at the school. There was a girl in her class named Lucinda. This girl was extremely withdrawn. She never talked to the other students in class. It was like she lived in a different world from everyone else, and she would often stare blankly at the sky. That day the teacher handed out the time capsule drawing paper and asked the students to draw their visions of the future. All the students were drawing seriously, but when she walked up to Lucinda, she found Lucinda had filled the paper with numbers. Back then she was young and hot-tempered, and she found a stubborn girl like this very frustrating. After trying to persuade her several times with no success, she simply took away the paper full of numbers. Later the girl had mental health problems and never came back to school again. After learning all of this, John followed the clues to Lucinda's old home. He happened to see a young woman walking out with a child, so he intentionally approached the woman, wanting to ask about Lucinda's whereabouts. To his surprise, this woman was Lucinda's daughter Anna. Anna said her mother had already passed away long ago.